Call this meeting to order. Let the minutes reflect that all board members are in attendance. We have Ms. Jackson, Mr. Glover, Ms. Crockett, and Mr. Holland. If you'll please stand, Mr. Holland, lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Let's pray. God, thank you for all the blessings you've given us. Thank you for our school system. Please watch over our kids, teachers, administrators, and all of our schools. God, thank you for our community. Please give us wisdom as we make decisions tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, you have received the agenda for the meeting. May I get a motion to approve the agenda? A second? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your hand.
All right, thank you. Board members, at this time, we have a request to address the board. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Marquise Ford to come forward and address the board. Mr. Ford, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and you can do it from wherever you. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
I've got a time.
Hey, you're good. You're good.
Is the mic over here that I use? Or-
Yeah, it'll take that long. Yeah.
So, thank you, board, for allowing me to address the board. Again, my name is Marquise Forward. I am the CEO of 1186 Real Artesian Water Emerald Industries. I took some notes, so I wanna make sure I keep under my 3 minutes. Last week of December, I accidentally discovered the school condition, and I was notified about the potential future of Otago School. My colleagues, classmate, community, we jumped into immediate action, attended several meetings that was in the community, church meetings, community meetings, and we attended the school meeting that was happening on February the 6th of 2025, which was last Thursday. Out of all these meetings, I think the most important one was at the school last Thursday. It resonated the most. The other meetings, we had a lot of community people who got up and talked about, gave their opinion about what needs to happen, what we need to do. But the meeting at the school resonated above all of them. And the reason why, the students spoke. They actually got up and spoke, and they went toe to toe with our superintendent. He can tell you from from his experience.
Very impressive.
They was going backwards and forwards with him. It was 2 other students. They're not here tonight. One of them is my team member's son. And they just really wanted to express the details. I thought that was the most impressive, toe-to-toe, not aggressive, but this is how we feel. This is how we feel, and I'm gonna tell you how it's gonna happen, because I'm already in the system. We're tired, we already going to ACTC. We're exhausted from riding the bus. When we get there, we're exhausted. When we get back home, we're exhausted. We can't do any extracurricular activities, because we're exhausted from riding the bus all day. We're not gonna succeed because we're gonna get picked on. We're not gonna succeed. We just want some teachers. We want some teachers. We want some people in front of us. We just wanna graduate from Otago. I don't think any adult probably should have got up and said anything, because they were the catalysts in the room. I didn't get up and say anything because I knew for sure that these children spoke the truth. They spoke the truth, and I just knew from then there on that I knew that it was my decision to say, hey, it's our time, it's our turn, it's our fault. I don't care who was here before, I don't care who was here after. It's our turn, it's our time, it's our fault to make sure that this be successful in some kind of way. Otago has been in a situation like this for years. I graduated in the mid-90s, I want to tell you my age. I graduated in the mid-90s, and I know for sure we was in the same predicament. There was a lot of things that we didn't get, but we persevered. I want to leave you with that because I'm almost at 3 minutes. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 8 and 9. These 2 verses simplify, tell you what Otago is all about. We are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. I came out of Otago as valedictorian. I went on to the University of Alabama, and I succeeded, and I come back home to stand in the gap and be responsible for the future. That's my address to the board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
As a follow-up to kind of come back and answer some of the questions that came up in the community meetings. Like Mr. Ford said, we had 3 different community meetings. I was very fortunate to be able to attend all 3. I do want to give a special thank you to Pastor Fuller and Mr. Brown for the 2 meetings at St. Joseph's Church. I was very impressed with how the meetings were handled. Appreciate everyone that attended. I think this country could learn a lot with how the meetings were ran, the discussions that were had. Just can't say enough good things about people in attendance. And again, just special thank you for those 2 individuals for allowing us the opportunity, and they did a great job running the meeting. Like Mr. Ford said, we had a 3rd meeting at Otago School last week, and we answered as many questions as we possibly could. There were a few questions that I was able to answer one-on-one with people, but there were some things that came up, and I feel like board members, you need to know the answers as well. I'll hit a couple of these real quick. We were asked a couple times about title schools. Are they required to have certified teachers? Title I schools are required to have certified teachers. However, you can hire emergency certificate teachers if you don't have anybody else that applies. There was questions about pots of money for additional core teachers. We're not aware of any additional funds outside of what we currently have. So basically the way that works, we receive our state foundation money, and anything else comes from our local funds. The question was, hey, are there other pots of money that we're not aware of? And the answer there is no. We're using federal and state dollars to keep the staffing in Otago as it is, and some local dollars as well. I thought this was a really good question. I was asked about the busing of students from Otago to the Career Tech Center. As you know, we made that change this past year because it was a way of ensuring that our students have the electives that, quite frankly, you can't have on the campus because there's not enough students there to have the teacher unit there. But it was a really good question with the amount of cost, and we dug into that. Everything I'm about to say I got from Mr. Messick. He dug into this a little bit. The question was, how much is spent busing Otago students at Prattville High School every day for classes at the Career Tech Center? These routes are funded through the LSD pupil transportation as midday routes. For fiscal year 2025, each route was funded at $9,100 plus 21% benefits. So we receive about 11,000 per, Career Tech Center route for the year. So the route to bus all Otago students that are in grades 11 and 12 to the facility costs us about 11,000. That factors in your pay for your driver, that factors in the, the cost is $9,900. I said that backwards, $9,973. That's your fuel cost, that's your bus driver cost, and then the extra that's left is put back toward the bus for maintenance, things like that. Now, the question was, and again, it was a really good question in the meeting, I really appreciate it. It got me thinking a lot too, that's why I'm coming back and reporting the question back to you. Do we save money doing that? Could we have a teacher unit that is doing that? To do the same service, you're gonna look at $100,000 for a locally funded unit. So it's more cost effective doing it this way, and quite frankly, if you only have one unit on campus, you're only gonna have one area that the students can take, whereas now they have opportunity to take multiple classes at the Career Tech Center. So I thought that was a really good question from the meeting. I was asked, can the money we earn from the transportation routes be used for teacher units? No, that money has to be spent on the route, since that's how the money is collected from the state. Another question was, again, I think this is a really good question for what the discussion has been in the community meetings. Obviously, there's concern about the length of time on a bus. So I had Mr. Messick pull all this data as well. The question was, what are the longest bus rides at other schools in the county? Are they comparable to potential Otago students that might be bused to Billingsley or Prattville? Mr. Messick, I'm copying and pasting his words to me. We currently have some Billingsley, Marbury, Pine Level, and Prattville K-12 routes that students are on the bus for up to an hour and a half. For a majority of our bus routes, students are on the bus for about an hour or less. He gave me two specific examples for the Otago zone. A bus traveling from Shiloh Circle, which is off County Road 33, in Otago, would travel roughly 30 miles to all 6 Central Zone schools in Prattville. The time traveled would be about 56 minutes for these locations. He said he would estimate an additional 20 to 25 minutes for bus stops along the way and unloading at the schools. He gave another example, so that scenario, you're gonna be about an hour and a half. The next scenario, a bus traveling from Jones Bluff, the most southwestern point of Otago County, to Billingsley is about 31 miles. The time travel would be 45 minutes. Again, you estimate 20 to 25 minutes for bus stops and unloading at the school. That's gonna put you at about an hour, hour 15. Mr. Messick's assessment of it is he didn't think that those routes are gonna be different than some of our routes in Prattville and Marbury, and the rationale there is in West Otago, obviously it's less populated, so you don't have as many stops, but you do have more distance. Conversely, if you're in the city of Prattville or if you're in the Marbury Pine Level area, if you're making many stops, you're still on the bus for the same amount of time, but you're not traveling the same distance. So I thought that was a really good question from a parent, and I wanted to be able to report that to the board tonight. And again, so those routes, those two routes he pulled, I would assume are probably the more longer routes compared to other routes in that area. And when you compare that to what we're currently running at other schools, then yes, it's pretty comparable. As far as projected enrollment for the 25-26 school year, I'm projecting 237 total students to be eligible to be enrolled in Otago, and what I mean by that is that's how many are in the system now. So if everybody came back, that's our seniors obviously graduating, that's counting pre-K, which is a little misleading because pre-K, you're never gonna know exactly how many kindergartners you have until the first day of school. So there's some trade-off there. So for the pre-K class moving to the kindergarten, when you do that, the total enrollment is 237. When you subtract the current number of priority school forms that have already been returned, your current enrollment as of today is projected to be 217 students. We've had approximately 20 forms come in. We still do have about two weeks, I believe, it's March 1st when the deadline from the state is on the forms to come in. So I do expect the 217 to change. That is the confirmed. Now, obviously, you can't project that people are gonna move in the area. I'm just giving you the data that's in the system, minus the seniors that are graduating. You add in the pre-K, and then you subtract out the confirmed forms that by law we have to provide transportation for next year. So you have to take them off the student enrollment side. So with all that being said, there's about 217 students that are projected to be K-12 at a Tagoville school next year. Again, I can't say enough about the community meetings. I thought everybody handled everything really, really well. Huge shout out to the community members that lined that up. I was really impressed with a lot of questions, like Mr. Ford said. Students probably had the best questions I've ever been asked in any forum. They did a really good job. But just wanted to share back again some of the stuff that I didn't have a specific dollar amount on the bus route when I was asked that night. So we went back and we looked it up, and I wanted to be able to share that with y'all tonight as well as a follow-up from the community meeting. So, are there any questions about any of that or any discussion on this section?
I do have a question, Mr. Woodman. Best case, 237.
Well, best case right now is 217 because those 20 forms have already been turned in saying.
Best case, 217.
Yes.
Worst case.
Well, when we first started calling, there was about 60 students that said they were leaving. Now, obviously, we have not gotten the forms from the 40. We did reach back out in a lot of instances, and quite frankly, we're being told the forms are still coming. Obviously, we don't have them, so if you say those 40 are leaving, then you're down to, I'm sorry, put me on the spot with math, 187, is that right? 177. So you buffer in maybe 10, 15 people change your mind, my guess is you're probably looking at 190, 195. Now, the issue is, once you drop below 200, you also lose funding for counselors and assistant principals. So that's a variable there. Now, we're not there at the moment, but I'm just trying to answer your question. Thanks, Ross. Okay.
Okay, so your projected enrollment is 217, so what is the funding per pupil if you look?
All right, so the numbers, originally when I came to you guys, we were projecting, obviously the 60 leaving. I believe that number was 26,000 or so. I haven't ran the numbers at 217, but it would be, if we're funded right now, I believe we're paying 14.5 about that, so you're losing about 30 kids, so you're, just an estimate, right now as it stands, you're probably looking at 18,000, just off the top of my head. I have not ran those numbers, but we would just take the total amount that is being spent divided by the number of students in the system. So with that being roughly 10% of the kids, I would expect a 10% at least increase in per pupil.
So how much would it cost to keep that school open next school year?
Well, for the K-12 model, we allocate about 3.6 million in personnel. The indirect cost is really hard to track that. I mean, obviously it's in the budget, but light bills are gonna vary, water bills are gonna vary. The fixed cost that I can tell you to keep the school open in the current staffing that it has is 3.6 million, according to Ms. Pope. Of the 3.6 million, the enrollment, obviously you only earn about 6 or 7 units from state funding. So Ottawa receives a lot of federal funding that, we offset some of the costs, and then there are some, again, there's some local funding there as well. But that, if the school stays open in a K-12 capacity, you have to have that model. You're gonna spend 3.6 regardless, because, like, I know, off the top of my head, like next year, projecting there to be, say, I think it's 13 seventh graders, I think there's 13 or 14 sixth graders. So next year, you've gotta have a seventh grade teacher, you gotta have a sixth grade teacher. When you get into the odd thing about the enrollment at Tagoville right now, your kindergarten class is very large. You move, I'm looking at some numbers here. First grade is 27, second grade, I'm saying next year. Next year's first grade will be 27, next year's second grade will be 21. But then as you move up, it's 19, 16, 15, 13, 17, 16. The trend is, once you get outside of that third grade, the numbers there are where you're starting to lose your enrollment. So to answer your question, you can count on 3.6 million if you're gonna keep the school open in a K-12 model. If you go a a different route, obviously that cost would be different, but for every grade that's on the campus, you're gonna have to have a teacher regardless. And if that 27 number stays there, I mean, at some point, you're gonna need to split that off. I mean, huge shout out to our kindergarten teacher there, she's doing a great job. It's kind of a anomaly there, kids coming in, and it's, you know, she's doing a great job. Very challenging situation there.
You mentioned if it's that model,
Yes, sir.
what are the options? Are there options that you have looked at, that your staff has studied, that may be an option other than the K-12?
Yeah, yes, sir. I mean, look, I think the board has several options here. I have several options as well. Obviously, if you leave it open as it is, you're in that K-12 model. If you decided to go a K-6 model, the numbers back up a K-6 if you had, it's all the other expense, it's all the other things. You don't have enough teachers and staff to justify a K-6 school with 6 or 7 teachers, because that would be a counselor, an assistant principal, a principal, and 7 teachers. Like, that model does not exist. Now, could you, in theory, I don't know, move Second Chance there and possible? But you're gonna have to restructure a lot of that too. So, have we looked at different models? Yes, sir. Like I said, K-6, if you had those numbers across the board, you're gonna be looking at Billingsley's numbers, quite frankly. You're gonna look at 300-400 kids. The problem is, once you get outside of our current second grade class, it nosedives to the point where it really limits what you can do. We have major issues in the secondary, and that's what the students were talking about. Major issues there, but again, I'm gonna defend the teachers as well. You know, we went to a block schedule trying to accommodate some of that. We have a really hard time hiring teachers at a tall school. And the block model was done to cut down on teacher preps. I dove into some of the stuff that the students were asking about, and what's happening is our secondary teachers are teaching middle school while the secondary kids are at the Career Tech Center. So that eats up some of their schedule. Well, then the secondary kids come back and they're on block schedule. That teacher don't have enough periods left to fully hit all of it. So the answer, I gotta ask the community, are we doing everything we can right now with the current level of funding and the current numbers? Yes. I mean, again, the block schedule was our attempt to try to solve some of that. So different models, yeah, we, at community meetings, you know, we talked, several people asked about a K-6 model. Again, you know, talked about that. Several asked about closing the school, I guess, maybe the next year. Again, that's something to look at, but again, you're gonna have the cost one way or the other, regardless of what you do long-term. So, yes, we've looked at a lot of different things there.
The kids that, they've been at ACTC, have they been successful? Like, are their grades good, are they doing well?
Yes, I mean, you know, just like anything, you're gonna have some kids that do better than others, but general reaction from Mr. Dunn is yes, the students have done pretty well. They've been able to take a lot of, some of them have been able to take dual enrollment classes. Some were not able, but it has to do with your GPA, you know, that's college stuff as far as can they take classes or not, but, doing what we're doing right now ensured that anybody that met the qualifications had the opportunity. Now, whereas before, I don't know if I could, and again, I wasn't in this role then, I don't know what was occurring. We made those changes last year because when I was on campus and talking to Mr. Ziegler and students, they felt like the school didn't have enough elective options and dual enrollment came up a lot. So we met with Mr. Dunn all summer long, we cross-referenced all that with the schedules. Is it ideal? No, but it's, I would say it's the best that it can be with the numbers, because again, I was talking to one of the students afterwards, and I was giving an example of Spanish. You know, we were talking about an elective class. If there's 65 kids in your entire high school, and that teacher is only able to teach an elective that goes 9 through 12, and the kids aren't on campus for half a day, you have a secondary teacher that has half a schedule. So that's the dilemma. I don't know if I answered all that, now I kind of rambled on that one. Yes, sir.
Just on your block schedule and then what you dug in last week, so do you feel like the block schedule was, so they were running like a period schedule at the middle school level and then a block at the high school?
You talking about, at Toggle now, yes, so your high school kids are on block schedule. Everybody else-
Seven, eight is on the period schedule.
Yes, that's my
Do you feel like it was successful, or do you feel like it?
I think it's
do a hybrid?
caused some challenges, but I think honestly, to defend Mr. Ziegler and his staff, I think that's the best you can do to try to limit the preps, because otherwise it was what it was before, and every secondary teacher was teaching 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And, you know, I will defend our teachers on that if you're prepping, and I know guys know this, but, you know, if you have 6 different preps, you can be the all-world teacher all you want, but it's 6 different types of curriculum, it's just not happening. And again, we made these changes trying to facilitate a better education. And I know there's some frustration about the bus ride and all that, but that was a change made to try to fix what the concerns were. And that's the dilemma with all this, especially on the secondary side. You don't have the enrollment to justify the units to get the electives on campus. So you're just in a very bad spot.
What are the numbers, at the high school level, what are the numbers to earn a unit?
You know, it varies at each different grade level. Off the top of my head, I wanna say it's 17, 18. I don't know
In
the
the middle
exact
school's
percentage.
higher, right?
Yes, slightly. Maybe it's 19. It's been a while since I was there. But that's what I'm saying, like, if you take, let's say, for the sake of math, let's say it's 20. Well, you're only earning 3 units at the secondary side, because you only have 65 kids. So, let's say it's 3.5, let's say the divisor's 15, I know it's not, but let's say it's that. You're only earning 3.5 units. Well, you need, obviously, 4 core, and then you need other electives, and then you're asking the secondary teachers as well to teach middle school. Now, it's like that at Billingsley too, I mean, but again, they have about double the enrollments, that load is split a little differently.
So like right currently, say for math, they're earning 3 units at the secondary level, that 4th, because we gotta have 4 cores, is that being federally funded or locally
Yes,
funded?
most of the money, any of the, that's why the per pupil you see more, because when we rank and serve our schools, to keep the doors open at Toggle, and quite frankly, Billingsley, that's why most of our federal dollars are going there to fill in the gaps for enrollment that we don't earn enough to do it. Specifically on Toggle, there's not enough earned on the student side to justify the total number of teachers you need. The dilemma is when you also, let's use the kindergarten class, for example. You know, we had several kids enroll after second semester started, which obviously you won't. Well, the dilemma as you have those big classes is, what do you do next year? You know, we tried to, you know, we're looking at hiring kindergarten teachers. But it's, you know, almost March, and then you get to the end of the year, and let's say kindergarten class is just pre-K that enrolls, so there's 11 kids in pre-K right now. So now you have 2 kindergarten teachers for 11 kids, obviously that don't make sense. Well, do you hire somebody, quite frankly, fire them at the end of the year, then try to hire a first grade teacher? That's some of the dilemma with the variance of the, enrollment numbers per grade level as well.
So most of the issues that are coming out of Otago are secondary though, right? Like what you're hearing from the kids, like the secondary.
But that's the common concern. You know, I know it was the other night, it was mainly, secondary, and again, and I said this, and I said it in the principals meeting today, I think post-COVID, especially on the secondary level, we've relied too much on technology. I've gotta look hard at that. You know, it should be a resource, it shouldn't be what we're using to guide instruction. I'll be the first to admit that, and again, it was addressed today with principals as well. But that being said, you know, your secondary class offering at a Toggle, again, the only way I can guarantee the kids have access to what they need is to have them spend half the day at private high school, because there's not enough units earned to justify it. So we are literally using career tech units, which if you really wanna get down to it, career tech does not earn units, that's private high school units for the most part. So we're already educating the 11th and 12th grade students at the Career Tech Center with units that we're pulling from other schools.
So if you just kept Tocqueville open for elementary, your cost doesn't go down.
The cost would go down on your personnel, because at that point, you would realign the 7 through 12, but you would still have the cost of at least one teacher per grade level. And then obviously, the thing that you struggle with is, from the personnel side, okay, well, now you have CNP, you have, your support staff that you're gonna need, you're not gonna earn a counselor, but we all know you need a counselor if you have school, you're not gonna earn an assistant principal. It's the staffing side of it, because then again, off the top of my head, let's see, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, it'd be about 120 students.
So I know our elementary students can't come up here and speak, but I think their data speaks for itself. It looks like with one student reading on grade level, they need intervention teachers, but you can't afford intervention teachers because
Well,
you're only gonna have, if you had just an elementary school model, you would have 7 teachers with an assistant principal, a principal, and a counselor.
right, I mean, the school has, you know, the reading and the math coaches per, you know, what we have to do with state law and all, but yeah, the challenge there is on the data. Now, I will say, today, there was the data presentation, we had some good growth out there at the midpoint checkpoint, specifically in a couple of our grade levels. We have some issues on some other grade levels, but I was encouraged to see some positive growth. But yes, when you're looking at the data says we have issues. And again, I'm gonna defend our teachers and personnel. That is a hard job to do right now. And unless you walk that walk, it's very hard. Now, the concerns that some people have brought up, yes, that's a valid concern on a lot of our campuses, and we've gotta do a better job of managing our people, but, I don't want all the scores to be indicative of, you know, staff not doing something or students not doing something. It's just a very tangled, situation right now that is hard to get the improvement you need when, again, I'm gonna go back to, I mean, our kindergarten situation, you know, what are we gonna do with that next year? I mean, are you gonna split that out and have two first grade units? That's probably what you should do. But what are you gonna do that at the end of the year? It's, that variance is why it's so hard to look at it.
I think that's a tough thing. I mean, I grew up in a K-12 school where, like, some years I was combined and you had 3rd and 4th grade classes together and you know, it's not optimal. I mean, you can't do a first grade with 27 kids. That's foundational skills of reading and math that, you know, it just, it has to be split. You know, our first grade is the most important year, for kids. I've tried, you know, I didn't realize they're doing the hybrid model but, you know, we did that once of trying to do a 7-12 and do 7th and 8th grade on periods and high school on block, and it just, some of those things look good on paper, it's just tough to make it,
It's tough to manage.
to make it work.
And again, that was some of the students' frustration was, you know, again, very, very valid points. We're fighting the same ballot marker right now, trying to decide, are we gonna stay block or not? You know, you take a math class first semester, and, you know, you don't take another math class till the spring of the following year. Now, I really like the block model and getting kids called up, and, hey, you failed a class, no big deal, let's get you in a second semester, but the question that keeps getting asked is, are we doing everything we can? And again, I can't speak on anything before we've been here, but when I look at the Bell schedule changes, when I look at what we did with the Career Tech Center, when I look at all that stuff, that answer is yes. And, you know, I feel I can sleep at night on that part of all of this. Now, some of this other, I don't know if I can tell you I am, but on that side of it, yes. Yes.
So we've done everything we could possibly do to make these children be successful in that environment, other than throwing more money into the school. We've done everything on the student side, like, we've tried to give them student knowledge, like, bring them to ACTC and
The only, and again, and I said this other night, the only thing I could see that we could do to change any of it is to possibly fund a local unit.
right, that's putting money towards it.
Correct,
right?
that would be a 7 through 12 elective, but then that teacher on a career tech path is gonna have to teach something 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. And to be brutally honest, there's not many options in the career tech world where you can do that because the curriculum is not aligned to lend itself. Now, could we do it? To answer your question, outside of that, there's really not a whole lot that I can tell you we can do differently on that side.
And just where we are education wise, I'm saying every school, we're not getting certified teachers. I mean, it's throughout the state, you know, and it's whether it's discipline or whatever the case, just in education in general, we're not getting, and so when there are certified teachers post-COVID that are putting in, I think it's not a toggle's fault, but when that certified teacher can choose, I can get 1 pref or 6, if I'm not from a toggle where that's my home and it means something special to me,
Yes.
you're just gonna choose what's the easiest pathway, and your easiest pathway is 1 pref, because you're gonna get paid the same, and it's nobody's fault, it's just where we are in education post-COVID, that we're not getting educators that are certified, and that's everywhere. I mean, we see it in the elementary grades where we used to have hundreds of people apply, and we're lucky now, you know, to have 10 people apply for a job that are multiple jobs. You know, it's just it's tough where we are right now.
This a scenario exists, this a world exists. If we looked at another option, a K-6 option, where we're not struggling to provide what the students need. Because what I'm hearing you say, I mean, I've not heard anybody say anything about losing a librarian. There is no music teacher, there is no art teacher, there is nothing else that, because of enrollment, we can't provide. I've racked my brain, and I have looked at this every way to Sunday. And yes, does it mean something to be at a school where your mom and dad and your family grew up and went?
Yes.
Yes, it does. But at the same time, if we're up here doing everything we can, and we rewrite the model to a K-6 model, and we're still struggling because we can't afford, with what's earned, to give the students what they need, at what point?
You asked me if we've looked at the models, so I wanted to answer that. To run a K-6 model, you're gonna have to have a float teacher to accommodate for any variance. And that teacher's gonna have to know year to year, you may be a 3rd grade teacher this year, you may be it's just part of it. So you're looking at least 7 teachers for the principal, then you gotta make decisions on, do you have a librarian, is the funding there? I'm not entirely sure on that, honestly, when I was talking to Ms. Poe, I know we would lose funding on the counselor and the, assistant principal side. You're literally talking about a model where you would have 10 to 12 employees probably. So yes, you would save some money doing that, but.
But it's not even about saving money. I
Well, I was about to say the academic side too. I mean, look, I haven't been on campus as much as I'd like to the last few weeks, but generally speaking, I'll just use elementary. You know, I see a lot of good things at all of our schools, but especially, you know, when I walk down the hall at Coggle. You know, I don't think it's a lack of that. Again, I wanna say this too, you know, projected, because we don't know for sure yet or not, but projected data today in the meeting shows that there's some growth going on. Not at every grade level, but at some. In some areas, the Coggle was growing better than other schools. You know, in terms of where they are looking at growth from, now I'm not saying in terms of being on grade, I'm saying your growth from where you are to where we want you to go. That's something as a district that we are harping on all our principals is, I don't care where they come to you at, there's no excuse at the end of the year that there not should be growth somewhere. So that's kind of what we're pushing, you know. If they're 3 grade levels behind at any school, or 1 grade level, or on grade level, at the midpoint, especially at the end, they should not be worse than what you got. Quite frankly, in a lot of our areas, we're fighting that battle, you know, to make sure that growth is where it needs to be. So in that model earlier, you know, I saw some positive stuff. Now, there's also grade levels where
So, Mr. Whitman, I told you, twenty-seven children in kindergarten, it would be hard to shepherd.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's hard to meet the individual needs of all twenty-seven kindergartners.
I agree on
So, we're doing a little bit of disservice to our elementary kids. If we went to a K through 6 model and we could not provide music and, all of those extra things that we do aren't, but then we're also doing our secondary kids a disservice by not providing them with the dual enrollment and their career tech and, honors and all of that stuff. And quite frankly, we were very clear that we are also in a funding crisis. So, if we are doing elementary and secondary both a disservice out there, and we're also in a funding crisis. Yeah. Just saying. It's tough. Are there any other questions?
All right, I'm sorry, something else. Further recommended for approval on consent agenda, I'll get some more information on the items that are listed. Item number 2 is a list of field trips, athletic trips. Item number 3 contains supplemental pay request. Item number 4 is a request for approval for the purchase of a new fire alarm system for Prattville Elementary and an intercom system for Daniel Pratt. The fire alarm system at Prattville Elementary is the most outdated fire system currently in the district. The total cost will be $210,380.21. The funds being used are ATF funds, so again, that's not coming out of our general fund. Item number 5, request for approval for the purchase of a Kubota tractor loader and backhoe with various attachments and a trailer to replace aging equipment. Total cost on this would be $70,908.72. Again, ATF funds being used. A little rationale that I thought was important, y'all know on that. The equipment will be used in various projects across the district. We did have some older equipment that we sold. The previous equipment required our maintenance guys to have CDLs and things like that to drive. We don't have that. We don't have anybody with those credentials. Quite frankly, the equipment was too big to use what we needed for. This smaller tractor would allow those guys to get in and fix water lines and things like that, that right now we're having to contract out with plumbing companies that's costing us about $3,500 a pop to come out there and dig something up, because we don't have the equipment to get in there. So the total cost is about 70, but again, when you offset that with the amount of money that we sold on equipment that we're not using, I believe it was about $35,000 of new dollars. This will help maintenance be able to plan more efficiently, and again, that will help us in a lot of different areas. Again, those are coming from ATL.
Will you please remind us what ATS is?
It's a technology fund. It's a wide range of things that we can use for facility improvements or technological upgrades, things like that. It's just a broad area that we can.
Is it a one-time funding or is it every year?
It depends on who you ask. It's not guaranteed. We're hoping we're gonna get that again. It's really freed us up to be able to do a lot of the improvements that you see across the district, so we're really hopeful that's gonna continue. Item number 6 is requesting approval for a new camera system at Prattville Primary Pine Level. I'm requesting approval for the new intercom system as well to be installed at Marbury High School. After installation of these systems, all intercoms in the district will be updated with the Valcom systems that are all the same. Up until this point, we've had kind of a hodgepodge of things, and when we've had the intercom issue, we're outsourcing with companies in Georgia and everywhere else, so we've had some issues. You shout out Mr. Camara, he's really been spearheading on getting grants and everything to help us with all this. So that'll get everybody on the same system. That should help with maintenance. It'll help with upkeep. Total cost of that is $229,710.94, and ATF funds will be used for that as well. Item number 7 contains an agreement for First Baptist Church to use our buses for an event that we previously already authorized. The weather has caused them to change the plans, so now instead of it being Friday, it needs to be Saturday, so that's just an adjustment to that. Item number 8 contains an agreement for temporary employment. Item number 9 contains supplemental coaching contracts for current employees. Item number 10 seeks approval of the 25-26 academic calendar. This calendar was selected by over 63% of our employees, and we were able to build in more professional development days that, to be frank, are much needed across the district. So students did lose a couple of days, but they're coming. We've got all that approved, but it has allowed us to offset that with professional development days that we can target more PD, specifically in areas that have never been able to do that before. And by that I mean bus drivers, our certified questions with the consent agenda as presented?
The calendar, are we just going back to a yearly calendar? Cause I know last.
Yes,
time we did 2 year.
And that's one thing too, I dropped the ball on this a little bit on getting it approved. We've already made plans that we will start calendar discussions next year in November. So I hope to have this to you guys in December moving forward. That's gonna be our goal. But yes, just year to year, you know, there are a couple things in the calendar that our teachers expressed. I believe in years past, you guys have had a couple early dismissal days where the teachers were required to get in their grades for report cards. That was something we looked at changing, but honestly, it was something that they said that they needed. So on any days it's early dismissal, the students are still there, the staff members are still there. And it's on the period, it's on the last day of the grading period to make sure that we're getting what we have to get on that side, so. But if some of those things do not work well, that's why I wanna do it year to year, so that we can make more adjustments. There were some things on this year's calendar that probably would've changed if it wasn't approved on the 2-year cycle. So again, I think if I get that to you guys, we start this process in November, then that'll speed up some of those other issues.
Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So,
A second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right, this time I recommend approval of the personnel report as presented.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second?
second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand. You passed.
This next topic, you know, I think we're all trying not to go here. I'm gonna make a recommendation here, you know, it's based on data, it's based on trying to get our kids what they need. I think, Lions, I told you that this is not a struggle, I know it is for you guys as well, but based on all available data and tonight's feedback, I recommend approval of the closure of the Toggleville School effective at the end of the 24-25 school.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. May I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second? Any discussion?
You know, within, as far as moving forward, you know, options for the community at the Toggle, you know, hopefully working with community and building things like that, it's, willing from your side as far as moving forward.
Yes, sir, I've made it clear to, I hope I have, in our community meetings. We're willing and able to look at any possible options and, you know, pending how the vote goes here, you know, I hear loud and clear, and you do as well, the concern of the community. But yes, I'll be glad to do anything we possibly can.
What about our, teachers and such, employees?
I met with the employees a couple times, just talking through all this. The advice of our board attorney is to, reduction in force, everyone on campus. I'm not gonna do that. I refuse to do that. I believe, especially with this part of the decision and discussion, you gotta be able to tell people you're treating them right and doing everything you can. And we have a lot of employees that have put in a lot of time at Toggle. And, I'm just not, and I don't mean that bad for our attorney. Our attorney gives us advice to keep us out of litigation. But tenured teachers, I will be meeting with, again, pending how this goes. I will be meeting with them and we will find a plan to keep our tenured teachers now. Non-tenured, I can't make any promises there because it's gonna be dependent on what schools need. But no, I'm not, I refuse to rip a school.
Any questions or discussion? All
superintendent report, just two things. We have principals today, we hope to have a code of conduct with you guys in April. We're looking at some changes there, but overall, things went really well this year. We're gonna look at making some changes pending tonight's results and everything moving forward. I'll begin to, look at transportation and things of that nature for Toggle. I'll start to go out there and, meet with staff and get a plan together. So, that's really it on superintendent's report.
With there being no further business, may I get a motion to adjourn?
Can I say something? I know that that's a very hard decision, but with all the community meetings that we've heard from people, I really do feel like this will serve our students the best. Like, this gives all of our students a better opportunity, and it's tough, it's hard. We don't really want to see, like you said, teachers and community have poured so much into the school, and we don't want to see this happen. But at the end of the day, are we doing what's best by the kids? And our data and reports all say that we're not. And so, you know, I hope that these kids will be taken care of, and maybe somebody put in place to track these kids' progress, to make sure that they are adjusting well, and, you know, in all of their schools, I hope that we can look at something like that, to check on them and make sure that they're all okay integrating into the schools. I know it's gonna be hard, so, I hope that we can take care of all our kids that are coming from there.
Yes.
Now, it's hard, it is. And I did this for over 20 years, and this may be the hardest thing that I've ever had to look people in the face and do. But it's right. It's right. For those babies, it's the right thing. Because they're gonna be given the resources now. This is it.
There being no further business, may I get a motion to adjourn?